In this lesson, we'll cover the methods by which you can use Cynomi's vCISO platform to select the regulatory frameworks that you will use in performing a risk assessment for your client. Now, we've talked about different things in the past in other videos, some things that you can do on your own, some things that you can do with different reports and templates that you download from the internet. But today, I'd like to walk you through the Cynomi platform and how we select a framework there. Give you a little bit about how the product works, how you can select things, and where this can benefit you. So as you can see on my screen, I'm already in the Cynomi platform. And the first step with any customer is to do the onboarding questionnaire. Now, because it says here it takes about 10 minutes, I've already completed the questionnaire, but the tool allows me to go back and revisit the answers that I've already provided. So that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to go ahead and hit start. And I'm going to skip past some of the questions. You can see like what industry you're in, how many computers do you have. These are all sizing questions that I've done, like I said, ahead of time. You can change them at any point in time if you want, but they're kind of irrelevant for the purpose of this video. Now, when we get to number 4, which security regulations do you need or want to adhere to? In this one, you can see that I've gone through and I've picked out a couple here, HIPAA and PCI DSS, but there's quite a few to choose from, and this list is always expanding as more and more frameworks become available. When you're deciding, though, what you want to adhere to and how you want to measure your clients, there's a couple things you need to think about. The first is, what industry do they work in? If they're in healthcare, they're already in a heavily regulated industry that requires things like HIPAA, potentially high trust, et cetera. Maybe they work in the federal space and they have FISMA requirements. They're going to go after NIST 853. You can select that here on the screen. You also have options where, what if your client works in multiple spaces? Maybe they have international customers and they have to adhere to ISO standards, but then they also want to adhere to a NIST standard for internal US operations. You can do that as well by selecting multiple frameworks. There's one other option, which is, what if your client doesn't have a mandate, or at least they feel or perceive that they don't? And they're coming to you and they're asking for your recommendations. Well, you could select any one of these that you feel is appropriate, and that might be the right choice to do if you really understand their space and you feel like, hey, I think you need to be going after HIPAA because you work in healthcare, even if you say you don't think you need it. But in a lot of cases, what you're going to get is a customer who comes to you and says, I'm not in an industry that's heavily regulated, but I do want to adhere to something. What do you recommend? And in those cases, something like CIS version 8 or 8.1 are a great one to choose. Also NIST CSF and the multiple versions that exist there. And the other thing that you can do is choose a couple. So maybe going into this, you know, okay, my client's not heavily mandated, so I'm going to choose CIS, but I'm also going to choose CSF. And maybe because they process credit card payments, I'm also going to choose PCI DSS, and maybe I'll leave HIPAA off. The benefit of doing this is that once you complete your assessment, that's the risk assessment, and you go to the dashboard in the Cynomi platform, you're going to see how your client maps to all of these standards. One of the easiest things that you can do is then say, if I map to 70% of CIS, but I only map to 50% of CSF, for my client's benefit, maybe I want to choose CIS because I've moved the goalpost pretty far just by starting out answering these questions. The lift that I have to get them over the finish line might be much smaller. So by choosing more options on this page, even if you don't need them, it's going to give you more options once you're finished. But again, you have choices here. You can go after the specific one that they require or that you feel they need, and that will clean up the dashboard, so to speak, so that you're not looking at more than one framework.